I did a video last week on Instagram for nonprofits where we talked about getting the 5 W's along with your impact all in the 30 characters in the bio that the program allows. Now, an elevator pitch is perfect for these situations. As nonprofits, we should always have our elevator pitch at the ready. And an elevator pitch is an executive summary of sorts. It's an overview of our organization, what it does, who it helps, and what impact we have on community. An elevator pitch can come in so handy when we're at a networking event or function and someone asks, "What do you do? Where do you work?" You have a quick explanation at the ready that will entice people to ask more. And 30 seconds is the average length of time for an elevator ride, hence the name. And you might actually find yourself in an elevator with a prospective donor. So we're gonna make sure you're ready. With that, today we're gonna cover the steps for crafting the nonprofit elevator pitch. And before we begin, you know I'm gonna ask, please take a second and click the like and the subscribe. It really helps our channel reach more fundraisers who are just starting out. Watching to the end and comments also really helps. So let's get to it. Does your nonprofit have an elevator pitch? There are many different kinds of elevator pitches. The question pitch, the rhyming pitch, the subject line pitch, and even one-word pitch. And as I mentioned, the typical elevator pitch should be ideally 30 seconds or less. And we're also going to drill it down further for a Twitter pitch at 120 characters and even further for an Instagram pitch at 30 characters. There are also many ways to approach your elevator pitch and things to include in it, such as identifying the problem, the solution, the impact of that solution. We can also include what we do, why it's important, and how somebody's involvement can help. And additionally, there's a system that I like, which is called AIDA, which is attention, interest, desire, and action. Confusing, right? So we're gonna break it all down. Step 1 is brainstorming. The first step I always take is gather the team. It's extremely important that everyone within the organization is familiar with your elevator pitch. Your staff, your board, and your volunteers, they should all be ambassadors for your organization. And we talk a lot in the sector about creating a culture of philanthropy, so gathering the team to brainstorm the elevator pitch is a great way to engage them. Volunteer coordinators, program staff, administration can all provide some valuable feedback. So now that you've gathered the team and you're all sitting around, begin to look at the problem. Generally start by defining what the problem is that your organization faces, and each staff member may see it from their own unique viewpoint. For example, if you're a domestic violence charity, a program coordinator might talk about how there's not enough beds. A manager might see it as there's not enough funding, and your receptionist might speak up and say that she's seeing more men calling in for support. You want to gather bullet points with as much information on the issues that your organization faces and sees within your community. Next, we move on to the solutions that your organization provides and repeat this same process. This is where you can include what you do. Also include things like what differentiates your nonprofit from others in the same space, how effective your programs are, and what you're preparing to accomplish in the future. Just get it all down on paper in bullet points. Next, look at who are you? What is your mission, your vision, your values? Then look at the impact. This is where we gather statistics, testimonials, quotes, and even short stories. Once again, get it all down because our next step is to start laying it out. Here's an example. We did this process ourselves, and I have pages on pages of messy notes, but we're gonna refine that next. So step 2 is laying it out, and I mentioned AIDA, which I use as a framework for laying out and condensing the information we've just gathered. Attract. The first thing we want to do is grab attention, the hook. We need to immediately deliver a solid introduction. It can be part of the problem, the solution, or the impact. The trick is to pull out the most compelling pieces of information that we gathered during our brainstorming into a sentence. What sentence are we going to use to draw them in? Now, pro tip, Try using attention-grabbing questions, emotional appeals, or leveraging that mutual connection you have with the person you're speaking to. Interest is a bit more challenging. We've already hooked them with that attention-grabbing statement at the beginning, but now we need to keep their interest as we add additional information. So perhaps we started with a compelling statement about who we are. Now we need to create a sentence that explains what we do that will continue to keep their interest. Another pro tip, try using an outlandish stat, the best stat you have that's going to shock and amaze them, something that they had no idea about. The next portion is desire, and this is where we can talk about the impact in a way that creates a desire to take action. Finally, we need to be very clear about that action. What do we want them to do next? And maybe we can even leave them with a surprise ending. As I mentioned, we worked through this entire process for ourselves. And here's our elevator pitch in 30 seconds, but I'm not going to bore you by reading it to you. We drilled it down even further because our goal was to get it to the 30 characters for an Instagram post. So step 3 is drill it down, hack and slash, and keep pulling out the most compelling pieces and keep cutting. It takes some finessing, and a thesaurus is a great tool. Often we can replace entire sentences with emotionally charged words. And there is the finished product. And again, watch that video because I explain why the name is different than the username. But it takes some work. It is well worth it. And some final tips, just practice the verbal pitch often to kind of refine your timing and your delivery, and make sure to smile. Let your passion show. Don't use overly verbose words or jargon. And lastly, test and tweak. You can ask key supporters to give you their feedback. I am always a fan of including stakeholders and donors in the process because it provides an excellent opportunity for donor engagement. So thank you so much for staying to the end. That, along with your subscribes, likes, and comments, really helps support our channel. So I hope you found this useful, and see you next week.